Heads of executed prisoners. That was when I was in prison. You want to hear it? I was pleading not guilty, but the prosecution was trying to frame me for the crime, and my court-appointed lawyer wasn't helping. I had a criminal record, so they didn't trust me much. I was locked up for a long time for embezzling company money. I don't want to specify the location of the prison, but it was in a rural area. The guy who robbed, murdered, and set fire to a rural father and son was in the cell of the jail where I was. I knew about the case because it was on the news every day at the time. But I didn't know the details of the case. I happened to be in the cell across from him. He was Kuroki, who had already been executed. At the time, he was still unsentenced, so I didn't know if he was going to be sentenced to life or death. In prison, people with serious crimes are blindfolded with cardboard in their cells. The window of his cell is the same, with cardboard and blindfolded tightly. So you can tell that he is going to be executed. When we go to the jail's playground, the 5 of us in the cell line up to walk. That's the only time I get to meet Kuroki. He's a strange guy. Prison guards are watching, and even though we're walking around in silence, they're talking loudly. I broke into his house because I wanted money for Pachislot, and his mother came home. So I strangled her. And then her daughter came home, too, so I strangled her and fucked those 2 corpses. You guys know what necrophilia is? That's the best, isn't it? And the point is, you're in a state of excitement. The prison guard comes in and says, "Curb your private conversation." But Kuroki doesn't stop him. I mean, he's crazy, he's going to commit crimes. He looks at me and says, "You want to ask me, how did you do it?" I looked at him. I was so surprised, I almost fell off my back. His whole body was black. It wasn't a racial thing. You know those charred bodies of burnt corpses? It was like a pile of them. Only his teeth were white. I couldn't even see his face. I rubbed my eyes a few times. It became a little more normal. Behind him, there was a pitch-black object, a human shape, that was clinging to him. I can see many thin black streaks, especially on his neck, and they are wriggling around. Black things, like human fingers. Kuroki's eyes were wide open as he spoke, and I think he was even smiling. He was a very creepy guy. I've met a lot of people, but the ones who kill people have a totally different shadow or aura about them. He was as black as a crow. When I thought he was talking to me, he told me to refrain from talking to the prison guard. I was told to stop talking to him. But he was yelling in his cell, "I killed him. I killed him. I'm going to be executed anyway." I heard him talking in his sleep. I know that voices echo in the jail, even when I'm talking to myself. But one night, I started to hear a voice that sounded like a desperate cry. To tell the truth, I thought he was being lynched by the prison guards. That's too much for a sleepwalker. I was having nightmares, too, and I was getting fed up. A little while later, he was sentenced to death. It was a particularly bad time. When I met him, his eyes were wide open and pissed, and most of all, that black aura seemed to overlap a lot. It was out of the ordinary. His body and face were all black, as if he was covered in black. The prison guard who was holding the reins around Kuroki's waist looked like he was in bad shape. I said to him, "What did you really do? And why are you always screaming in your cell?" And he said, "Well, it's funny. It's funny, because there's only one guy there, and he's screaming." He rubbed his neck and said, "I'm choked every night. They make me get down on all fours, they put a noose around my neck, and that kid and his dad pull me down and put weights on my body and almost rip me off from the face and neck down." What are you talking about? There's no rope in the room and no one can get in. Kuroki nodded and became unusually quiet. He said, "Those guys attack me every night to get back at me. Every night in hell, every night they strangle me like this." Kuroki pointed to his neck. I showed him a clear red, finger-like mark on my hand. Obviously, I wasn't dreaming, but real finger marks. Are you really being tightened up by someone? I was stunned. I don't believe in ghosts to begin with, but solitary confinement. Only prison guards are allowed in there. Who would do that to me? From there, Kuroki started talking about the truth of the case. Something he probably didn't tell the prosecutor or the police. The case was that Kuroki was addicted to pachislot, skipped work and went to a pachinko parlor to play. When he ran out of money, he tried to break into some house and happened to have the key to the house open. It was a mother-son relationship, and the mother happened to be coming home after work that day at that moment, and I guess she forgot to lock the door. I think he forgot to lock the door. I think his rationale flew out of his head and he broke in and immediately strangled the mother, killed her, and took the money. But I heard he had a habit of necrophilia. He'd done it before, but then he got horny, and played with the woman's body as she stiffened up after death. So, worst of all, the daughter came home, and Kuroki, who was hiding in the house, strangled her as well, and this time raped her while strangling her, and killed her. When it was over, the bodies of the two parents were left behind. They simply set the house on fire and fled, trying to hide the evidence. The money they took was only about 20,000 yen. They went back to the pachinko parlor and started playing again. The police came and arrested him right away. He didn't know how he got caught, but he was either seen leaving or reported to the police. It's a very remote area in the countryside. I thought it was a terrible story, and I thought the guy was a psycho. And he had a wife and kids to support. So at first he tried to get away with it, but found out through bodily fluids from a burned corpse. The fire was a fire and they found out after the autopsy. He tried to get away with it by making excuses like he's responsible or it wasn't premeditated, but it didn't work out that way. I'm sorry, but I don't feel sorry for him at all. That's all I can say. Because every time I spoke, I could see his hands on my neck. He was nodding his head. But what makes me think this guy is the real killer is his eyes have the eyes to kill look in them. You know how some people change when they lose their temper. His eyes have a different look to them. Even if he is handcuffed, you never know what he will do. And the prison guard yelled at me again. I told you to refrain from talking to me. Then he stopped talking loudly. I heard he was moved to another detention center. A little after I left, I heard that he had already been executed. I heard it was much earlier than usual. He was hanged. When I was in prison I talked to a prison guard who was watching him and he said he was choking himself in his sleep, talking in his sleep, screaming in his sleep. He was talking in his sleep, screaming in his sleep. I knew I told you that the brutal ones are crazy to begin with. When you become a model prisoner, you get to know the prison guards very well. Surprising, isn't it? They are very warm and friendly with the prisoners. But this story, I think he's on death row because of his black aura, you know? The ghost of the person you killed will haunt you until your execution. That's why women prisoners are said to be haunted by the spirits of their murdered children until they die, or even until they go to hell. They will haunt you until you die, or even until you go to hell. But you know, the ex-boyfriend of the girl I killed was a prison guard at some prison. This is the end of this story. Thank you for listening to the end.